Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be dissecting the business model of NUCOR Corporation. They're a real powerhouse in the U.S. steel industry. And we've got a pretty good stack of sources to work with.
Oh, yeah.
We've got their annual reports, the 10Ks for 2022 and 2023, and even their first quarter report from 2024,
Okay.
the 10Q. So are you ready to sort of
Yeah.
unpack what makes this steel giant tick?
I think it's going to be really fascinating.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really curious about is, how does NUCOR actually make money? Like,
Yeah.
what are their primary revenue streams?
Well, when you think of a steel company, you probably picture, massive mills just churning out tons of steel, right?
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. Nucor does operate in that core steel mill segment, but they've also diversified into two other segments as well.
Yeah.
Steel products and raw materials.
So they're not just making the raw steel. They're also turning it into
Yep.
finished products and even controlling the supply of materials.
Exactly. So this three-pronged approach, it diversifies their revenue streams, but it also gives them more control over their entire supply chain. And this is especially helpful in such a cyclical industry like steel. If demand drops for raw steel, they can potentially offset that with stronger sales in their steel products.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's go back to that core revenue stream for a minute. How exactly does NUCOR sell all that steel they produce?
So they've got kind of a two-pronged approach there as well. It's a mix of contract sales and spot market sales. So for sheet steel, which is a big part of their business, they primarily rely on those contracts. Those are agreements with customers where they lock in prices for like 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
And actually in 2023, over 80% of their sheet steel sales were through these contracts.
So that sounds like a pretty good way to, have a predictable revenue stream,
It is.
especially in an industry that's known for price fluctuations.
Absolutely.
But what about the other, 20% of the sheet steel and the rest of their product?
So that's where the spot market comes in. They sell the remaining steel at market price. And as you mentioned, those can fluctuate, so it adds a bit of risk, but it also gives them the potential for higher profit.
When demand is high.
Exactly.
So it's like they're playing both sides of the field.
Yeah.
But, there's another interesting twist to their revenue stream.
Oh, you're thinking about the internal supply chain.
Yeah.
So NUCOR actually uses a significant chunk of the steel they produce internally for their steel product segment.
Okay.
So in 2022, 22% of their steel production went right back into making their own products.
Wow, that's a pretty significant amount.
It is.
What's the rationale behind that?
Well, by supplying their own steel product segment, they have more control over their costs and quality.
Okay.
It also makes them less reliant on those external suppliers, which, can be really helpful.
Especially during times of supply chain disruptions.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty sophisticated approach to managing, both their revenue streams and their supply chain.
Yeah, I think they've got a really smart system.
But of course, every business has its costs. So what are some of those key cost drivers that NUCOR has to deal with?
Well, their biggest expense by far is raw materials,
Yeah.
and in particular, scrap metal. That's the main input for their electric arc furnace, or EAF steelmaking process.
I've read that EAFs are considered more environmentally friendly than the traditional blast furnaces.
Yeah, they are.
Is that why NUCOR uses them?
It's definitely a factor. NUCOR is very proud of the fact that they have about 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions compared to traditional steelmakers using blast furnaces.
Yeah.
But it's also a matter of, cost efficiency and flexibility.
Okay.
EAFs can be started and stopped more easily than those big blast furnaces. So that allows NUCOR to quickly adjust production levels.
Based on demand.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like a win-win. It's good for the planet and good for their bottom line.
I'd say so.
But
Yeah.
getting back to those raw material costs, scrap metal prices can be pretty volatile,
Oh, yeah.
right? So how does NUCOR manage that risk?
They've made some strategic moves to sort of help with that volatility. First, they actually own DRI production facilities.
Okay.
DRI stands for direct reduced iron, and it's a scrap substitute.
So instead of relying entirely on the scrap metal market, they're making their own alternative.
Yeah, they're creating a more consistent supply, and that helps stabilize their costs.
That's smart.
And they've also invested a lot in scrap brokerage and processing through their DJJ subsidiary.
Okay.
And that subsidiary has like a global network, so they can source scrap at competitive prices all over the world.
It's like they're playing the commodities market, always hunting for the best steel.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it sounds like they've got, their revenue streams are diversified. They're managing their costs strategically. But then how do they actually convince customers to choose NUCOR over all the competition? What's their customer value proposition?
That's a great question. And it actually ties back to their focus on a few key things: quality, service, and sustainability. NUCOR really focuses on meeting those customer specifications. They want to make sure that the steel they deliver really meets their exact needs.
Okay, so they really emphasize quality.
Yeah, their commitment to quality is top-notch.
But, quality is kind of expected in any industry. So what about service? How does NUCOR stand out there?
They're known for having really strong customer relationships and being super responsive to their needs.
Right.
NUCOR prides itself on fast fulfillment times, and for some products, they even do direct delivery,
Oh, wow.
like their CHI subsidiary. They manufacture garage doors, and they'll ship them straight to the customer. They cut out the middleman, and that avoids potential delays.
That's a pretty impressive approach.
Yeah.
Streamlining the whole process like that, it probably helps build stronger relationships with their customers, too.
I would think so.
And, of course, we can't forget about sustainability,
Right.
which is becoming a bigger and bigger deal for customers
Yeah, absolutely.
across all sorts of industries.
It's a huge factor.
So how does NUCOR factor that in?
Their use of that EAF technology we talked about, and their pledge to hit net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Those are major selling points for them.
Yeah, those are some serious green credentials.
Mm.
And it shows they're really taking it seriously.
Definitely.
It seems like they're really hitting all the right notes when it comes to, meeting customer needs and expectations.
I think so.
But what really sets them apart? What's their secret sauce?
Well, it's not so much a secret sauce as it is a philosophy. It's like ingrained in everything they do.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Their company culture. It's really unique for this industry.
Tell me more.
Well, for starters, they're known for being super employee-centric. They treat their employees really well. They offer competitive pay and great benefits, and lots of opportunities for growth.
So I guess happy employees lead to a more productive workforce.
Right. It seems obvious. But you don't always see companies actually doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
NUCOR's definitely putting their money where their mouth is. And it's not just about pay and perks either. Okay. They have this decentralized decision-making structure. They give their general managers at each location the power to make decisions locally, so they can be more agile and responsive to what their customers need.
That's a pretty bold move. You have to have a lot of trust in your employees to do that.
They do,
Yeah.
but it also creates this sense of ownership and accountability,
Yeah.
Those general managers aren't just taking orders from headquarters, they're actively shaping the success of their operations.
That's a great point.
And then there's their focus on profitable growth. They're really strategic with their capital investments. They prioritize those projects that will generate strong, long-term returns.
So they're thinking long-term,
Always.
not just trying to get bigger for the sake of
Yep.
it. It sounds like they're playing a long game.
Yeah.
Carefully positioning themselves for future success.
That's a good way to put it.
So they've got the revenue, they've got
Right.
the cost management, they've got the customer focus, this company culture, but it all hinges on
Right.
a few really critical operational activities. What
Exactly.
are those things that really make this model work?
Well, first and foremost, it's their expertise in running those EAFs efficiently. They've really honed their processes over the years to get the most out of their raw materials, optimize their energy consumption, and just really maximize their production output.
So it's like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Everything's working
I
together.
get the most out of it.
Exactly. Their strategic sourcing of raw materials, especially that scrap metal, they've got this sophisticated global network to secure scrap at the best prices.
So they're always one step ahead.
Yeah, always thinking about their sourcing strategy.
What else is key to their success?
Strong sales force and building those deep relationships with their customers. It's not just about selling steel. It's about understanding their needs, providing top-notch service, and exceeding those expectations.
So they're building partnerships, not just transactions.
Right.
Makes sense.
And we can't forget about their commitment to innovation.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
They're constantly putting money into research and development, always looking for ways to improve their products, their processes, and their environmental performance.
So they're not just keeping up with the times. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
And that forward-thinking approach
Mhm.
has led to some pretty impressive innovations.
You're talking about those branded product lines, right?
Yeah, like the AEOS-TM and the KANE-QTM.
Yeah. They're setting new standards for the whole industry.
So they're not just making steel. They're creating solutions for their customers
I like that.
and for the market as a whole.
The steel industry is notoriously cyclical.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real roller coaster. You have those booms and busts.
Yeah, driven by things like economic growth and construction activity,
Exactly.
global demand, all that. So with a company like NUCOR, that's so focused on the long term and so committed to its employees, how do they ride out those inevitable downturns? Do they just kind of hunker down and wait for the storm to pass?
They're a lot more proactive than that. You know that diversified business model we talked about?
Yeah.
It really acts as a buffer for them. So let's say demand for steel buildings softens. Maybe their garage door business picks up some of the slack.
Okay.
They try to spread the risk. That diversification definitely seems to help. But even with that, downturns can still be tough.
Oh, yeah.
So how do they manage their costs when things get lean?
Well, that emphasis on cost control,
Yeah.
that becomes even more crucial during a downturn.
Okay.
They're not afraid to make those hard decisions,
Yeah.
like idling production lines or maybe putting off some capital expenditures.
If it means protecting their profitability and their
Right.
employees' jobs.
It's all about making those tough choices.
Right. So it's like tightening the belt a little bit,
Yeah,
making every dollar count. But I imagine it's a balancing act.
it is.
They don't want to cut back so much that they jeopardize their future growth. Right. You've got to find that sweet spot, maintain that operational efficiency, but without sacrificing that ability to bounce back.
When the market recovers.
Exactly. And that's where that decentralized structure really helps. Those general managers on the ground, they have the power to make adjustments based on what's happening in their markets.
It sounds like a system that can really adapt and roll with the punches.
It is.
But what about competition? How does NUCOR stack up against all its rivals?
No.
Both here in the U.S. and internationally.
Well, let's be honest. The steel industry is competitive. You've got domestic players, you've got foreign steel makers. Everyone's vying for market share.
So how does NUCOR deal with that?
They focus on what they can control. Quality service, innovation efficiency.
It's like they're playing on multiple levels.
Yeah, using all these different strategies.
To stay ahead of the game.
And those branded product lines?
The EEOCM, the Econ IQTM.
Those are perfect examples of how they're developing differentiated products. They're offering something unique to their customers.
So it's not just about churning out tons of steel. It's about creating solutions that solve specific problems.
Exactly. They're competing on value and performance, not just on price.
And then there's that commitment to sustainability.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. As people get more and more concerned about the environment, NUCOR's EAF technology, their net zero goals, those really give them a leg up.
So it's not just good PR. It's a core part of their business.
It is.
But the world's always changing. So what are some of those emerging trends or potential disruptions?
Yeah.
That could shake things up for NUCOR in the future.
Well, one trend we're seeing everywhere is this increasing automation. The robots, the AI.
The rise of the machines?
Pretty much. And the steel industry is no exception.
So how's NUCOR handling that?
They're embracing it. They're investing in advanced analytics to optimize their production. They're looking into artificial intelligence for quality control and predictive maintenance.
So they're not afraid of being disrupted. They're trying to get ahead of it.
They're trying to be the disruptors.
What else is on the horizon?
Another big trend is the demand for those advanced materials. Things like high-strength steel, specialized alloys. Those are crucial for lightweighting in cars. And for infrastructure, that needs to be extra durable.
So it's not enough to just make basic steel anymore?
Nope. You've got to specialize.
To meet those evolving demands.
Exactly.
How's NUCOR keeping up with that?
They're investing heavily in research and development. They're exploring new technologies, new materials, to create products that meet those very specific needs.
They're not just following trends. They're anticipating them.
Exactly.
It's that forward thinking that really sets them apart. Is there anything else you're seeing that could really shake things up?
One more thing. There's this increasing focus on circularity, reducing waste.
So it's like that reduce, reuse, recycle idea.
Just no, but on a massive scale.
Okay.
And this is actually where NUCOR has a real advantage. Remember, they're already using recycled scrap metal as their primary input.
Yeah.
But they're not stopping there. They're figuring out ways to reclaim and reuse byproducts from their steel-making process.
So they're turning waste into a resource.
Exactly. It's good for the environment, and it's good for their bottom line.
It seems like NUCOR is in a really good position to handle whatever comes next.
I think so.
They've got the business model. They've got the culture. They've got that commitment to innovation.
They're a strong company.
Well, this has been a fascinating look at NUCOR.
It has.
I'm really impressed with their strategic thinking, their operational excellence, and how much they care about their employees and the environment. They're really doing things right.
They're a leader in the industry, for sure.
I'm curious to see what they do in the years to come.
Me too.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into NUCOR. We've only scratched the surface, but hopefully you have a better sense of how they operate and what makes them so successful.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive into another fascinating company. Until then, keep learning and keep exploring.